Hey, how's it going, guys? I'm Phil Leverett. I'm with ASAP Home Services. We're an authorized dealer for Puronics. And what I'm going to do is go over the water test kit to give you a really good understanding of what it is we do when we go into a home to test someone's water. I'm going to go through the tests as I do them when I'm doing a water test. And I'm going to explain how the kit works and what we use while we're in the home. So the first thing I'm going to do is explain that this is the mini filter that we use. This has 2 stages of the 3 stages of our large filter that we install for a whole home system. When I go into the home, what I do is I start setting up. I go to the kitchen immediately when I get in the house. I don't go sit down in the living room and chit chat or sit at the kitchen table. They ask where we need to be, and I say, hey, let's go to your kitchen sink. We're going to get set up, and we're going to show you what's going on with your water. And so the first item in the kit that comes out is the large filter, or the mini filter, and I set it next to the sink. This is not the typical sink that's in a home. I'm here in the office doing this demonstration, so we only have one side of the sink. The first test that I normally do when I get into a house is I do a chlorine test if they have chlorine in their water. Most water departments here, all of the water departments here in Middle Tennessee typically use chlorine in the water to treat the water. And this is a pool chlorine test kit, and these are OTO drops. These become your friend. So when I'm talking to a client, I'm explaining to them there's 2 aspects of the water that we're going to go over with you today. The first one is from a health standpoint. The second one is from a financial standpoint, to be able to save you money, because if you don't fix your crappy city water, just about everything in your house that water runs into is going to go bad very quickly, and you're going to have to replace those items. So from a health standpoint, and also from messing up gaskets and O-rings and things of that nature in sinks and the backs of toilets, chlorine does a lot of damage to all of that stuff, especially the O-rings and gaskets in the pumps and like the dishwasher and the washing machine. So chlorine, though, is also a known carcinogen. It causes cancer. And so, when I go into the home, the first thing I do is test the chlorine. I run chlorine and water into the chlorine test kit. And I fill it. There's a little line right here that you fill it to. If you fill it too full after you put the chlorine test drops in, it'll actually pop the lid off because of the chlorine gas that's trying to escape out of the test kit. So we put the water in the test pool test kit, and we put 5 drops of OTO in there. These are chlorine indicator drops. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we put the lid on here and we shake it up, and it's already trying to pop the lid off. The chlorine gas, there's a ton of chlorine in this water in Smyrna. So the chlorine level is at about 5.5 milligrams per liter, which is about 3 times the chlorine in a public pool. So I test the chlorine first to let people know that chlorine is a known carcinogen and it causes cancer. It actually absorbs right through your skin directly into your bloodstream. I get a lot of people that say, oh, I don't drink that water. I'm like, well, you've probably taken a shower, aren't you, daily? If you're not, I'd probably smell you by now. And I kind of joke around about that. But it's a very serious issue because this is causing health problems nationwide. Chlorine is horrible for you, and it's going directly into your bloodstream when you're in the shower. And I go through that. So I'm just going to go through the different things. I'm not going to go through my presentation right now. I will do my presentation in a minute. So the first thing I test for is the chlorine. The second thing I do, because it takes about 10 to 12 minutes for the chemicals to react, is I do a dissolved solids test. And I use these bottles. All of the bottles that I use in the kit, the red is always for the tap water, okay? And I'll let the client know that. So all of the bottles that are marked red is going to be the water straight out of your tap. All of the bottles that are marked blue are going to be from the mini filter that we're using to show you the quality of water that we're going to put in the pipes and run through your home. Does that make sense? And they're going to shake their head. And I do a lot of questions along the way as I go. I want them to interact with me. So I do the dissolved solids test next. And the way it works, I'm doing this so you can kind of see how the chemicals work and what chemicals I use. So I run their tap water into the red bottle, and I set it down. I typically will ask them if I can grab a napkin or a paper towel so I can set it on their table, or actually on their counter. I normally, at this point, I've already hooked up my filter. So this is a pump that I use when I'm in a home. Most homes these days have newer faucets that we cannot attach this to. So we've got to get water to go into the pump, and the way it works is the water runs into the top of the filter, and it goes through these two stages and comes out the bottom. So we have to get the water with pressure running through this. And with older sinks like this, which you normally will not find in a kitchen any longer, we could slip this over it and get pressure and run a hose from here to here, and the water would come out. So this is pretty much not used much anymore because of the way the sinks are designed in a kitchen. So we have to use a pump to get the water through the filter to be able to show them what the water running through their house is going to be like. So the mini filter is allowing us to show them the quality of water, or close to it, that's going to be running through their pipes. So I normally run water in one side of their sink. I stop the sink up and put my submersible pump in the water. I actually carry a sink stopper with me, because I would say that 80% of the time, if not even 60% of the time, they have no idea where the sink stopper is because they just moved into the home. And so these sink stoppers, I bought this on Amazon. I got a 2-pack for $7.50, and it works incredibly well because I have to get that water stopped up in the sink to be able to run water through my mini filter. So once I get my filter hooked up, so I have my water. So I don't have a two-sided sink here. If they have a big farm sink, typically I'll ask them for a big bowl, because those big farm sinks take about an hour to fill up. I mean, not quite that long, but it takes quite a while. So I'll ask them if they have like a big, huge plastic Tupperware bowl or something that I can put my pump in, like what I'm doing here. That way it doesn't take forever to fill it up. And I've got a separate place. Here I'm doing it because I want to be, this sink's not quite big enough to fill it up and then do all of my testing. So I've got water run from the tap in this bucket, and this water is going to run through the top of the pump out through here. So what I'm going to do now is fill up my blue bottle with the water from our mini filter. Okay. And I always rinse the bottles out a couple of times. The reason I do that is I don't want them thinking that there's something in that bottle that's going to skew the test. And I'll make a comment. I'll say, I had a guy one time say, "Hey, what'd you have in that bottle before you got here?" I'm like, "Oh, nothing." That's why we rinse them out real good to make sure they're all cleaned out. So this is going to be what's called a dissolved solids test, okay? And a dissolved solids test is going to actually show them what's in the water. Now, we could, and I sometimes do use what's called a TDS meter. The TDS meter will give us a reading for the particles that are in the water, but it doesn't allow you to see the particles in the water, okay? So a TDS meter is good. To me, it's a good kind of gadget for this area, but this is not really a necessary thing to have. Seeing is believing, and seeing what the total dissolved solids is on the meter is one thing, but actually seeing it in the water and seeing how gross and nasty it looks makes a larger impact for that client. So the two chemicals I'm going to use to do the total dissolved solids test. Now, before I move on, the other thing that I typically will do is I have a bottle that has yellow around it. And so the red is always going to be their tap water. The blue is always going to be from our mini filter. In this instance, the yellow is going to be, if they drink water from their refrigerator, I'm going to run water from the refrigerator in this bottle. And I'm going to test that. And I do that because the water from the refrigerator is typically has more crap in it than the water coming out of the sink. And I'll explain that when I get into my demonstration here in a little bit. but we do not have a refrigerator in here to run water in this one to test. So the two chemicals that I use for a total dissolved solids test is precipitation reagent, okay? It says right on here, precipitation reagent A. This is a chemical that's going to allow anything that's in the water to attach itself to this. This is just a dye. This is precipitation reagent number 2, but it's just a dye that's going to give the water a little bit of a tint to it so we can actually see the crap that's in the water, okay? Because what I tell people is the reason I do the chlorine test first is because I want them to see the high amount of chlorine that's in this. This is 5.5 milligrams or 5.5 parts per million. However, you could say it either way, okay? So 5.5 milligrams per liter or 5.5 parts per million. And a public pool is 1.75 to 2 milligrams per liter. So this is almost 3 times the amount of chlorine in this water than is what's in a public pool. Now, why do they use that much chlorine? Well, the reason they use this much chlorine, sir or ma'am, is because if they didn't use this much to bleach the water, okay, to make it clear, the water would come out of your tap a brownish color and you'd be calling the water department asking them what's wrong with your water. That's why they use so much chlorine. And there are a lot of cities that'll get offended that we're showing people what's in the water. And no, this is not a Hach chlorinometer. That's another test, another way to test chlorine in the water. But this is pretty accurate. They use it for pools all the time. So what I'm going to do, since they've bleached the water and you can't see what's in it, I mean, this water's coming out of the Stones River. How do you think they get the water out of the Stones River to look like this? All right, so I'm going to put 15 drops of this reagent in both bottles and 15 drops of this dye in both bottles. And this takes about 10 to 12 minutes to set up. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. I'm going to put 15 drops of this in each one of these bottles as well. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. All right, and then we're going to put the lids on the bottles and we're going to shake them up and let them sit. It takes about 10 to 12 minutes. Our water will stay totally clear just like that. All you'll see is a little bit of an amber tint in that water. This water is going to get cloudy and you're going to start seeing stuff attached to the chemicals in the water. And I can already see stuff in that water right now. I can see big chunks of crap. So anyway, so we're going to let that sit. So this is the precipitation test, and these are the bottles that are used. These are the chemicals that are used to make this test possible, okay? And I'm going to set those right there. The next test that I do while this is percolating is I do what's called a hardness test because we want to check the hardness of the water. Hard water damages everything, okay? Everything that it runs into, everything that it touches, hard water damages pumps in the dishwashers, the washing machines. It damages the water heater. And we need to see how hard the water is. The harder the water is, the quicker the damage will take place. So again, the red is going to be the tap water, the blue is going to be from our mini filter. So I'm going to run, and the line that I fill this up to in our test kit is right here. It's 10, I've put 10 milliliters of water in here, okay? In these bottles, you saw that I just filled it pretty much all the way up to the top of this line. But these, I'm going to put 10 milliliters of water in the red vial, and I'm going to put 10 milliliters of our filtered water in the blue vial. So I'm going to turn my pump on. So I've got 10 milliliters in each bottle, and then what we're going to use to test this, to get a hardness test, this is what's called a hardness indicator buffer solution, but I just call it a hardness indicator. It is a blue chemical, okay? And this is the first one that we use, and I'll explain the second one here in a minute. So the first one, I'm going to put 7 drops of this in each one of these vials, okay? So I'll set these out here so you can see this a little bit better. So I'm going to put 7 drops of this in each of these vials. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And I explained to the client, if the water stays blue, then the water is soft. If the water turns red, then the water is hard. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So your water, or my water, is going to stay a nice royal blue. Your water is going to turn a bright cherry red. Okay, so our water is going to stay a nice royal blue, and your water is going to turn a bright cherry red. That means the water is hard. This means our water is soft. So hardness is measured in grains. 1 grain of hardness is equal to about 30 pounds of crushed rock going through your pipes in your home on an annual basis, on a yearly basis. So the hardness scale goes from 1 to 10. 10 is extremely hard. 1 is, at the lowest on the chart. If the water is blue, it's 0. So the second chemical that we use in the hardness test is a hardness titrating solution. And what I'm going to do, however many drops of this it takes to turn your water blue, is how many grains of hardness your water is. So I'm going to start off with 3 drops whenever I'm doing this test, because I know their water is going to be harder than 3. And then I'm going to shake this bottle up to see if it turns blue. And it didn't, it stayed red. I'm going to put 3 more drops in. And I already know what the water hardness is here in Smyrna. Okay, that's 6. Let me do a couple of more. 1, 2. That's 8. It's going to be 9 or 8. Let's see. It's 8. So the hardness here in Smyrna is 8 grains of hardness. And that means that if you take 8 times 30 pounds, that's how many pounds of rocks running through your pipes on an annual basis. So that's the hardness test. And these are the chemicals that we use for the hardness test. The hardness titrating solution, or the hardness indicator, and the hardness titrating solution to try to get the water back to blue, okay? And it's 7 drops of each of this, of the blue in each vial to get it to turn, whether it's going to be blue or red, and then however many drops of this it takes to turn the customer's water blue is how many grains of hardness the water is, okay? So that's the 3rd test that I do. The 4th test that I do is I let people know I'm going to show you how hard water can't work, okay? So hard water literally cannot work. And the red one is going to be your water. The blue one is going to be my water. Same again. And I'm going to run their water up to the 200 milliliter line on this beaker, okay? So I'm going to run it to 200 milliliters. I'm going to rinse the bottle out though. So I'm at 200 milliliters on their water. I'm going to run mine to 200 milliliters. And I'm going to rinse my bottle out real good too, because after each test, I rinse this out, and I wind up rinsing it out with their hard water, and I want to make sure that I get the hard water from the last client out of here so this works properly, okay? The other thing is you need to maintain your equipment and clean it. So I'm going to run this to 200 milliliters as well. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do a soap test. So the red is yours and the blue is mine. And I'm going to use pure soap. It's a soap reagent number 1. That's what we use. There's no chemicals in this. There's no sudsing agents. There's no detergents. This is just pure soap. And I'm going to put 3 drops in each one. So I'm going to start off with 3 drops in mine. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. So that's 3 drops in each one. And we're going to put these little rubber stoppers in here. We're going to shake these up to see if we can get some suds. That's the purpose of this. And what I'm going to do, my goal is to show them that my 3 drops is going to create a ton of suds. 3 drops in their water is not going to create anything because hard water can't work. Hard water literally cannot clean your clothes. Hard water cannot clean your towels and your washcloths. The more you wash your clothes and your washcloths and towels in hard water, the dirtier they get and the more detergent that will get trapped in your clothes and in the towels. And I'm going to prove that to them later in another test that I'm going to do. I'm not going to go further with their water, but with 7 to 8 grains of hardness, so I continue to use the soap that I was just using. This is, so I'm going to continue to put drops of soap in their water to try to get it to suds up. And I'll go to 10 drops and shake it up. It's not going to get, we're not going to get any suds at 10 drops of soap. Then I'm going to go to 20 drops and shake it up. And I'll get a little bit of suds and it'll go away very quickly. And then I'll go to 30 drops. At 30 drops, I'll get about the same amount of suds as I've got here and the water will look nasty, okay? So that's how we do the soap test to show them that their water is very ineffective and will not work because of the hardness. Now, where does hard water come from? If they ask you that, hard water is due to all of the limestone, all of the minerals that are in the water. The water, we're on a bed of limestone in the whole state of Tennessee, but just about everywhere we go, we were just in Louisville yesterday. We have an office in Florida. Everywhere we go, the water is hard. And if you do not soften the water, it's going to damage everything. And I'll actually pull my phone out and I'll show them what all will be damaged with some pictures that I have on my phone. So the next test that I wind up doing is a test where I use 2 glass glasses, and I don't think we have any of those here. I don't think we have. So I'll grab a couple of their glasses, like short brandy glasses, and I'm going to run their water into each one of those about halfway up. And then I'm going to put some OTO drops, the chlorine indicator drops, in one of those glasses, okay? And it's going to show them how much chlorine. It'll turn a dark yellow. It'll look like apple juice. The second glass, I'm going to have that client, the husband typically, put 3 of his fingers down in there and wiggle those fingers around. And I'm going to ask him, I'm going to say, hey, how long do you normally take a shower? And most everybody says 10 to 15 minutes. Some say 20 to 30. Okay? And I'm going to have him keep wiggling his fingers in that water. And I'm going to say, well, what's the biggest organ in or on your body? And I would say that 65% of the people don't know that the biggest organ in or on your body is your skin. But your skin is an organ, and it's the largest organ you have. And I'm going to say, well, when you're in the shower, the water's hot and your pores of your skin are opened up really big and you're breathing all that chlorine in. Well, this is cold water and this is going to be about 20 seconds. I'll say, go ahead and take your fingers out, and I'll hand them a paper towel and let them dry their fingers off. And then I take my OTO drops and I say, well, this water had the chlorine in it like this one did. So when I put these in here, this should turn the dark yellow color that is, right? And they go, yeah. I go, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'll swirl it around and it'll stay nice and clear. It will not turn yellow. And I'll say, where did the chlorine go? And they all have this look of amazement on their face like, oh my gosh. And they're like, oh, it went into it's on my fingers. I'm like, well, no, it's gone through your skin and it's in your bloodstream. So when you're in the shower, showering in that chlorine for 10 to 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, your body is soaking up all of that chlorine. And chlorine is a known carcinogen and causes cancer. And when you treat the water with chlorine, 4 other chemicals that cause cancer come out in the water that are byproducts of the chlorination. So you're bathing in a cocktail of a bunch of crap if you don't get it out of your water. So from a health standpoint, whether we save you any money or not, I would recommend that you fix your water. Doesn't that make sense? Doesn't it? Absolutely. So, we need to get your water fixed today. The next test that I do is I'll say, hey, I need to get a clean washcloth and a bowl. And we do not have any clean washcloths here that have been washed here at the office. But I'll have them run and grab a clean washcloth out of the linen closet. And they typically will, either the wife will go get it, the husband, or they'll send one of their kids. They go get a clean washcloth. I'll get a bowl that they have that's in their cabinet. I'll look up there. I'll grab a bowl out. It doesn't matter if it's like this. I'm going to stick that washcloth right down in there. So this is your clean bowl, and this is your clean washcloth that you've washed here, right? And I'll smell it. I can smell the detergent. I go, okay. I flop it in there, and I take our water, and I turn it on, and I run our water in the bowl over the top of that washcloth. And I'll let it run for a little bit to get some water in there. I don't want to get too much. And then I'm going to take that washcloth and I'm going to wring it out 6 or 7 times thoroughly. Dip it back down in the water, let it soak it up, wring it out. And you can see it sudsing immediately. So what we're doing is our water is going to release the detergent and the dirt in this washcloth. So don't get offended. I tell them, I say, don't get offended. It's not your fault. It's your water is not working properly, okay? So I'm going to wring that out. I'm going to grab one of those glasses that I would just use to show them the chlorine in the water. I'm going to pour this water in that glass, and that water is going to be nasty, dingy, dark, and you can see suds, and I'll get them to smell it, and it smells just like their laundry detergent. And I'll let them know that when we put our big filter in your home, when we put our big filter in your home, we're going to ask you to go get all of your towels and washcloths, and we're going to say that, look, you need to do the load of laundry, do it on cold, and when it gets to the agitation stage, look in the washing machine, and it's going to be full of suds and soap, even though you didn't put detergent in there. You'll have to wash them at least twice to get all that mess out. That's what I tell people, and that is the truth, because their water will not get the detergent out of their towels and washcloths and their clothes. So, that's one of that's the second to the last test I do. The very last test I do is I'm going to say, hey, look, I'm going to wash your hands real quick, and I want you to feel the difference between our water and your water. And I'm going to pull out a cheap bar of soap. It's really, Joe goes out of his way to get some real expensive high-end soap for us. And I'm joking around with them. And I'll rip this open. I'm going to let them come over to the sink, and I'm going to turn my filter on, and I'm going to run my water over their hands and get them to lather their hands up really good, front and back, get them all lathered up. And I'll tell them I'm going to rinse one of your hands off with my water. I say, give me one of your hands, or give me your left hand or right hand or whatever. And I'm going to rinse that hand off really good. I'll say, rub it together. And they'll rub it together like this right here. And I'll say, doesn't that feel soft? And they're like, yeah. I'll go, and then sometimes they say, oh, it feels like the soap's still on there. I said, no, there's actually no soap on your hand. It's just super soft. All right, let me rinse your other hand off with your water. And I'll turn their water on, and I'll have them rubbing their hands underneath that water to rinse that hand off. And I'll say, hey, the more you rub it, the stickier it's going to feel. Does it feel sticky? And they go, oh, yeah, that feels really sticky and nasty. I'm like, yeah, that's because the soap is still on your hand, because your hard water cannot rinse the soap off of your hand. So think about this, and I'll give them a paper towel to dry it off. And I'll tell them that the hand that I just rinsed off with our water is going to stay soft for probably 2, 3, 4 hours. It'll feel like you have lotion on it. It's because the oils of your body are working properly. Your other hand's going to dry up and get nasty and gross. And I say the crazy thing about this whole thing is that when you take a shower, your water is not rinsing all of that body wash or / detergent off of your body. And then you reach for a towel that's full of detergent still, and you rub that all over your body. I mean, I don't think that's too healthy. Do you? And have you ever been out in the yard working and you start sweating and you can smell the detergent real strong coming off of your clothes? They're like, oh yeah. I'm like, do you start itching a little bit? And they're like, yes, it's because the detergent's irritating your skin. So our water will get your clothes clean and get all that detergent and all those. Right now you're using chemicals to wash your clothes, and I'm going to show you a different way, a better way, when we get to that. And so those are the demonstrations that I do. The first one, I'll go over it again real quick. I'm going to recap. The first test I do at the very beginning is I get my chlorine test kit, little pool test kit, and I'm going to use the chlorine OTO drops. I'm going to do 5 drops of these in here to test it, to show what the level of the chlorine is. Test number 1. Test number 2, I immediately go to the dissolved solids test, and I'm going to use the red bottle for their water, the blue bottle for our water from our mini filter. If they have refrigerated water, I'm going to use this yellow bottle. The reason this junk is around the bottom of this is because that's from bottled water. I'll test bottled water, and I clean out down to this line with my pinky, and I leave this on here, this junk, because that's the BPAs and the plastics from bottled water. So I'll test their refrigerator water or their bottled water, either one in this, okay? And then I'm going to use these 2 chemicals, This is a precipitation reagent. It's going to be 15 drops in each one. 15 drops of the dye in each one. Shake them up, takes 10 to 12 minutes to percolate. You can see the results of this water here in the city of Smyrna, and it's nasty. There's a bunch of junk in the bottom of this. This is our water, nice, clean, and clear. That's what we produce. All right, the next test we do is the hardness test. Red is the city tap water, the blue is our water. The two chemicals that we use, there's a hardness indicator that we use. The blue chemical goes first, 7 drops in each one. Our water will stay blue. It should. If it turns red, then you need to back flush your filter. That's a whole nother subject. But our water will stay blue. Their water is going to turn red. However many drops of the hardness titrating solution it takes to turn their water blue is how many grains of hardness their water is. Okay? The next test that we do after that is we go in to show them the soap test. Our water's in the blue beaker, their water's in the red beaker. We use pure soap. We start off with 3 drops in each one. With 3 drops, we'll get a bunch of suds. Our water will stay nice, clean, and clear like this, and you can see through it. You're going to have to go to at least 30 drops with their water to get suds. And this water, after 30 drops, will look nasty. I didn't want to use my soap up, though, just to explain to you how this works. The next test that we do after that is I get a couple of glasses. I do their tap water in both, have the husband or the wife or somebody put 3 fingers in there and wiggle them around. I want to do that for at least 20 seconds, and I want to show them that the chlorine is gone out of that glass, okay? The next test that I do is I ask them to go get a washcloth, and I'm going to show them how the detergent remains in the washcloth, and I'm going to run my water in there and show them that. There are a few other things that you can do from a test standpoint. If I get to a house and they have a baby or toddlers, they usually will have one of those drying racks on the side of the sink, and they're going to have those bottles stuck in there. And I'm going to ask them, hey, are those bottles clean? And they'll say yes. I'll go, okay, let's see if it's clean. I'll grab one of the bottles out of that drying rack. I'll run my water halfway up in that baby bottle that baby's drinking formula out of. I'll grab a nipple, put it on top of it, and I'm going to shake that bottle up. And I'm going to shake it vigorously, and you're going to see it suds up inside that bottle every time, and the water will look dingy and nasty. And the look of shock and amazement is on the wife's face every time, and they're like, oh my gosh. I'm like, yeah, your baby's drinking detergent. And I'll set it down. And one of the other tests you could do is a bubble bath like thing, but I'm not going to go into that. So those are the tests. This is the equipment. When I'm done, I make sure that I clean up thoroughly. I don't leave water all over their counter. I don't leave trash laying around. I throw things away if I've used paper towels. And I take my bottles and I go to their kitchen table or sit there at the breakfast bar with them, and I will go over the numbers with them. I'm going to ask them questions, but all the way along the way, I'm asking questions and saying, hey, that makes sense, doesn't it? But this was not a presentation right now. This is just to show you the test equipment and the chemicals that are used.